Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Today we'll be continuing our mod highlights series, where today we'll be looking at a behemoth of a mod. This is Tomb Kings Extended. It was only a matter of time until I started checking out the extended mods. And in truth, most of the extended series is actually always in my loadout. So what exactly does this mod do? Well, a bunch of stuff. It adds in a bunch of new units, some even faction specific to certain legendary lords, elements of choice for some of the already released characters in terms of start positions, and so much more. This mod, as stated before, is absolutely massive, and while the Tomb Kings are probably in the best position when in regards to all the releases released in the Total War Warhammer series currently, this mod adds a bit extra to the Tomb Kings to make them far more enjoyable. So let's check out as much as we can in regards to this mod and see what we can find. Now, as always with these mod highlights, I'm going to start off a series of new campaigns in easy mode and easy battles, as this is the fastest way for me to be able to show you anything in regards to this mod. We're going to start this off by checking out the lords, and obviously it makes the most sense to check out Settra, the King of Kings, first. Before anything, if you were an old school tabletop player of Warhammer Fantasy Battles, you're going to notice a lot of references to a lot of events, tabletop scenarios, and even expansion packs from back in the day. For example, you can begin the Nemesis Crown War. This was one of the scenario packs from way back in the day. It's just a nice little nod to the old school stuff, which brings a bit of a smile to my face. But nostalgia aside, you'll notice that Settra has the opportunity to sail to Bretonnia. This is one of a few element of choices added in with this mod. By choosing so, this will send Settra and his forces to Brionne in Bretonnia, and launch your own version of crusade against the Bretonnians who have stolen many artifacts from you in the past. You will still keep access to Khemri, so be warned that you might forget about it and could potentially be attacked early on without any defenses by the top-notch orcs. A bunch of legendary lords are added with this mod, the first being King Amenhotep, which is able to be recruited by the King of Kings himself. Seeing as you've launched your invasion of Bretonnia, you have access to one extra army slot, which means that you will be able to defend yourself without a problem with a unique character and not a generic Tomb King lord. Your construction menu will show a few new things, a few buildings here and there, but something that you will notice straight off the bat is that your roster has been increased by possibly double. A bunch of new units have been added in, some fitting from the lore, some tidbits here and there, and even some fan-made creations, for example the Khemric Titan, which was a fan-made creation. It is also important to note that most of these units go around to the other factions, not all of them, as some of the other playable legendary lords that were added in from the DLC, those official releases, have also been granted a bunch of unique units. So yeah, you're going to have some special units for Settra, some special units for Arkan, some special units for Katep, and with a sub-mod, some special units for Khalida. This gives each of the primary Tomb King lords a level of originality, in a very similar sense of considering them their own respective sub-factions. The technology tree for the Tomb Kings is still standardized between each of the legendary lords. However, some new technologies have been added here and there, and obviously all existing technologies which buff up units and so on also now include all the new units added in from this mod. It still takes an age and a half real time to complete the tree, but at least now you're getting benefits for more units, so it doesn't feel like it's taking that long. Not much has changed with Settra himself, barring his new home of course, but you will notice that he has a few new skills, mostly in the form of some enhanced versions of a Lore of Nehekara. Some new buffs, summoning spells and the like, nothing too great, but enough to add in a little bit of flavour to the King of Kings. Joining Settra is his herald Nekaf, who has a pretty decent stat line, however his skills will make him much more powerful. But this is a character who is well known in lore, and yes, by the way, he also carries his own banner. You'll actually see a lot of different Tomb King banner bearers with this mod, which is absolutely fantastic. However, Nekaf himself has always been a rather important character, and the fact that he was never added in alongside Settra was a bit strange to me. He is a melee character, nothing too great in terms of stats as you can see, but once buffed up through a series of levels, he'll become quite the powerhouse in close combat. And next we have our other legendary lord, King Amenemhetem, and yes, I'm more than likely to butcher these names, so I do apologize in advance. This is a great king of Zandri, who are known to be a seafaring folk of Nehekhara. His skills themselves are pretty decent more or less, and can get quite powerful when you actually upgrade via the form of skill points. The king himself gets access to some spells of a lore of magic which aren't commonly seen throughout the Tomb King ranks, which means that you will have a unique playstyle in terms of combat with this lord. My only real complaint about this character, because he's done extremely well, is the fact that he's not one of those pseudo-hordes in the same sense as any legendary or special lord for the Vampire Coast. Something like that would have been really interesting, as you could have used this character to go and harass other races from opposite sides of the world. Now let's look at the Grand Hierophant Katep. Once again you get an element of choice here, where you can decide to either stay in your area next to all the Dark Elves, or move to the much less edgier area known as Albion, where you're not surrounded by a bunch of people telling you that My Chemical Romance was the best band ever to come out of the States. You will keep access to your former territory, much like Cetra does, however you are unable to actually form another army unless your 15 turns pass, and it's more than likely that the beastmen near the location will get rid of that. So it's just best to focus around the lands of Albion and Norska, all of which are hospitable to you. In regards to skills, Katep hasn't been changed much either, but then again he's already in a very good place, so he doesn't really need much changes. All that's been added in is that of the same new spells that Cetra has also received. Khalida herself is the one main legendary lord without any major changes. However, it is important to note that there is an optional submod which can be found linked in the main mod page. This gives you access to a bunch of different Amazonian units for Khalida's forces. It makes sense to me for Vortex campaigns, but not so much for Mortal Empires where she's so far away from Lustria. We're going to start hitting the custom legendary lords now. King Nekhen-Hatem is a lord that begins in the southern reaches of Nehekhara. However, as soon as you begin your campaign as him, you're forced to pick the Blood in the Badlands. This is yet again another reference to a Warhammer Fantasy supplement, and funny enough, my favourite one of them all. But nostalgia aside once again, it takes you all the way up to the areas now known as the Badlands, which surrounds you by potential orcish enemies. Once again, you control your former territories in southern Nehekhara, which means that you will have to defend both locations, but thankfully you are able to recruit a second army straight from the beginning. I do like these types of mods. Being able to be so split apart from your various areas is actually quite good, as you'll more or less have to work harder, seeing as you'll need to take care of two separate territories so far away from each other. The character stats themselves are perfectly average at best. No issues regarding that, obviously. I much prefer an average character than something horrendously overpowered. But the Great King also has a bunch of unique skills which prepare yourself against the Green Tide. Faster replenishment rate, some bonuses which increase your armor and damage output when fighting against greenskins. All such things are incredibly welcome, especially when the Green Tide starts rolling. With one of your special items, your main weapon, also grants a +3 to all public order in all provinces, which is absolutely fantastic considering if you're going to be fighting greenskins, you're probably going to want a rapid expansion. Another starting faction with this mod is that of Prince Rakaf III. Again, average stats, but his traits and his campaign effects focus around Kemrian war sphinxes, so your sphinxes themselves will be quite overpowered and you can have a lot more than usual. His skills focus around giving his army fast attack, being able to give units vanguard, faster progression when moving into sieges, and so on. This is a fairly interesting character if you like to be quite aggressive with the Tomb Kings, and his items themselves will actually make him into a quite decent melee combat lord. Rakaf and his faction also have access to another unique legendary lord, his own father, Imraphipis, who was described as a mad king, with his son specifically telling the mortuary cult that only in the most dire circumstances may his father be awoken. And seeing that -300 diplomatic relations with the greenskins, yeah, I can see why. You are in for a world of hurt if the greenskins are controlling the Badlands and you've decided to bring out this legendary character. Again, this character is geared for fighting greenskins, where you could even unlock skills which give your army double the experience points and a lot of buffs against them. With other skills focusing around your army's melee capabilities, you can turn them into pure blender armies if you so wish, and his special items are focused around buffing him up more than anything else. This is a character that you want up front and personal with any enemies, and with his epic items, he is well enough ready to take on just about really anything. Arkan the Black was left for last, and with good reason, seeing as this character himself has been changed in a number of ways. Arkan's faction has always been a sub-faction, but now it's been updated to be more of a Legions of Nagash. Those who played the tabletop back in the time of the end times will remember this type of army fondly. A decent amount of vampire count units have been added into the roster, already adding to the already available, I believe was normally 2 or 3. But not only that, now you also have access to some vampire coast units too, as it was very much known in lore during the end times of course, that Nagash and his servants made use of not only Tomb Kings, but also vampire counts and units for the vampire count roster, despite the fact that there weren't any models in play for the vampire count roster due to Games Workshop not adding them in, but instead they were referenced in the lore, so it's quite nice to be able to field an army like this. You may notice that the Tomb King units from the respective factions can be upgraded in a similar way to how the greenskins can since the Warden and the Paunch. This is not a sub-mod, but indeed already in this mod, so it saves you having to download multiple mods if you just want it for your Tomb Kings. Slavery is also in this mod, but I'm brushing over it lightly as it's obviously something that everyone's already accustomed to. But back in regards to Arkan, he hasn't really received that many new skills, and in truth he didn't really need it. He's got access to the lore of vampires now, and he's able to ride upon a zombie dragon, but that's pretty much it. Then again, his faction has already received so many new units that there's really not a point to add too much to him. A bit of a chain quest is also available through this mod. This only becomes available for some of the factions of the Tomb Kings, and will do so as soon as you hit your second turn. I'm not going to show off the chain quest itself, as I don't want to ruin people's fun, but I will tell you that the end of the chain quest unlocks the legendary Prince Apophis. He's got a custom model and he looks absolutely amazing. Don't you worry, we're going to be seeing him in just a little bit of time. And finally, before we showcase the units and check over their stats, we have the Mortuary Cult, which has been expanded quite heavily. There's a few different things here and there. In the gist of it, it works pretty much the same as can be expected. Canopic jars and some resources serve to get you more armies, unlock units, craft some items and so on. But also, the slavery mechanic is linked to this, where you can sacrifice slaves in an effort to get more canopic jars. So if you're a bit of an aggressive player, you'll be able to actually use the Mortuary Cult more often, as you will literally have more canopic jars than you actually would ever need. Now we're going to show off all the units and their respective stats that are unique to this mod. I'm pretty sure I might have missed one or two. You see, I've got a full army here of 40 units and it still feels like I might have been missing some. That being said, we will be going over some units throughout this part of the video, which might seem like they have no animation whatsoever. This is because they're considered stationary when the battle hasn't begun, and indeed, as soon as you click start battle, you'll actually see them do this animation. It'll actually be shown later on in this clip, as when we reach to Prince Apophis, he looks rather lackluster until you actually click start battle. All in all, this mod is extremely enjoyable. Then again, anything which usually has the extended roster title generally is. This is one of the mods that I have in my loadout permanently, like I said. As long as none of my mods conflict with this, I tend to have it as much as possible, as I like seeing variety and different types of armies spawn from the Tomb Kings. Play-wise, as a player yourself, it also works out rather well, as it gives some nice variety to your armies. Don't get me wrong, the Tomb Kings themselves vanilla-wise are done extremely well, and I think everyone still calls it the best DLC that they've released so far for the Total War Warhammer series. But unfortunately, the Tomb Kings themselves are very much based on the 8th edition army book of Warhammer Fantasy for them, and indeed, a lot of the units from that book are very samey. This mod changes that out for you drastically, seeing as there are a lot of custom models. You can see that with the Scarabs, the Chimeric War Titan, and so on, and even some baseline units. What really surprised me about this mod was also the inclusion of the basic command units for most of the actual units, banner bearers and unit champions, which was actually quite a nice visual to it. Yeah, they don't really change too much, but it's still something nice to have. You'll notice which units actually have these in the battlefield from far away, as those are the ones which kind of shine in a very similar sense to having a hero. It's great seeing so many custom models included in one mod. Honestly, everything looks and feels rather well. I wasn't really seeing a lot of clipping issues or anything. In truth, my only real issue with this mod was the inclusion of Tomb Kings with guns. It's not like it's actually that well needed, and it was very rare in the lore that you would actually see a Tomb King with a gun. It's mostly bows that they would focus around, as they had the arrows of the asp. Some units with this mod can be fairly overpowered, as the Tomb Kings themselves now have access to every unit to field every single battlefield role. However, as a player, if you don't want to feel overpowered, you don't really have to recruit them anyway. Having the element of choice being implemented in this is absolutely fantastic, and so many different legendary lords to choose from is also great. It gives you so many different options. Not only that, but whether you're playing the Tomb Kings or not, it's always great to see more and more Tomb Kings rise to power. If you're not playing as the Tomb Kings, that will at least give you some sort of threat when you march down south. This is one of those mods which I'd say is a must, whether you play as the Tomb Kings regularly or not. The mod itself has a massive changelog, and I don't think a video of this size could ever do it justice, so that will also be linked in the description below, alongside the mod itself should you decide to actually download it and give it a try. Bear in mind that if you want to try out the other legendary lords, the custom ones, you will need Mixu's unlocker for it. And lastly, if you're aware of any mods that you'd like me to try out and possibly do a video on, in an effort to promote some of your favorite modders, you can either leave a comment down below, or if you want quicker access to myself, you can join our official Discord, as I'm fairly active on that. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games, where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince, and Okro for subscribing to us at our fame level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman, and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our king level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel's been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.